So it's a little bit late in the game, but I finally received my Geforce RTX 2080 Ti Kingpin from EVGA. So this is the flagship 2080 Ti model in the Geforce RTX series lineup. So this is like the best what they can offer. It has the best features for overclocking, as you would normally expect from a classified Kingpin model card. So the 2080 Ti cards have been out for a while, and they finally got the Kingpin model out, although there were quite big delays. So here's how it looks like. This has 11 gigs of GDDR6 as other 2080 Ti models. Nothing really that special about the box. There's like no big list of features anywhere on the box, so I think we can just get on by unboxing the card and see what's inside the box. So just like the box cover says, EVGA and Kingpin. So let's see what goodies they have put inside the packaging. And that's how the card looks like in all of its glory in the plastic bag. So I think this is their first card, at least in the classified or Kingpin series lineup, which has an AIO cooler cooling the GPU unit. So it's something new. Of course they have had their like hydrocopper series for ages, which is just a custom water block on the card, but this is an AIO, so I think it's an Asetek unit. To be a little bit careful. So I think so that's how it looks like. So I think they upgraded the all-in-one cooling radiator to 240mm instead of just 120 or 140. I think these are 12cm fans. In this little box you get, I think these are just some adapters. Yeah, nothing else. So HDMI to mini display port, DVI to mini display port, and so on. Your Pro bit connector to measure all the voltages from the card, just like on the X299 and Z390 dark motherboards. So very handy thing. Then just some guides how to install the graphics card. So 2 examples how to mount the AIO cooler, although the example B is kind of bad now that they have the radiator increased to 240mm, so you cannot place the radiator at the back side of the case because it will not fit. So I think good place would be at the bottom if there's a spot for it, or at the front, or then at the roof of the case. But I will be using the Tek-9 Icon LN2 container, as well as my custom water cooling loop, if I can just fit it on this card. So I'll use those instead of the AIO, what we will see. Then just overall quick installation and user guides for the card. And also some screws and your case badge. So that's what comes with the card. So here's how the card looks like from the front side. So you can see the the AIO part of the cooler as well as the VRM part of the cooler are kind of separate, so you can keep them separate from each other as well. So if you want to use a custom solution on the GPU itself, you can do that and still keep the VRM parts on the PCB. So for example, a GPU LN2 container or a custom GPU only water block. So that is very handy, at least for me. The VRM heatsink really looks to be quite heavy and very strong, so that's definitely something nice to have on a card like this. When looking at this part of the card, we can see that there are 3 8-pin power connectors for the GPU, just like on other most high-end models from other vendors like MSI or Galax. There's an EVBot connector. That is quite rare nowadays. You cannot even buy EVBot anymore. I think you haven't been able to buy EVBot new from EVGA since like 2012 or something similar to that. So that is very old product, but they still offer support for it. I happen to own one, but I'm not even sure that I'll be using it because they have very nice software for this particular card, and it's probably easier to use than the EVBot, but they still offer support for it. And of course you can use this card to flash the EVBot firmware anyways if you don't want to use it with this particular model. Then there's also one 4-pin fan connector located next to the EVBot connector, and then there's some, I think this is USB Type-C port. Maybe it's for overclocking features of the card. And when looking at the I/O part of the card, there are, I think that's 1 full display port, HDMI, 2 mini display ports, and I'm not sure what the small one here at the back is. I think that's some USB Type-C port as well. Yeah, looks to be. So that's the that's how the card looks. So the next thing we'll be doing is unmount the cooler of the card and the plastic tray or the that covers it, so we can take a look at the all the little and greedy details of the card's PCB. But yeah, and also you have to remember that with EVGA products overall you get their amazing warranty support. So if you happen to break the card or any other similar product, you can return the product directly to EVGA. Yeah, and you don't have to mess around with the actual store if you happen to buy this model or the similar product from the store. So you can just handle the RMA process directly with EVGA, and they still allow you to unmount the cooler without losing the warranty. So that's something absolutely amazing from EVGA. I think EVGA is the only company, along with Galax or KFA2, that allow you like change the thermal paste or use some different cooler like GPU only water block or similar. So that's really nice about EVGA. But yeah, let's unmount the cooler and let's see what's under the hood. So the card wasn't actually that easy to strip down, so here's how the backplate comes off. So there was actually one screw hidden underneath this sticker, so I'm not sure if this is like their warranty sticker. I really hope that EVGA hasn't changed their policy about unmounting the cooler on their top-end graphics cards, because, well, being able to unmount the cooler and use your own thermal paste or different cooling solution is, well, it's part of being enthusiast, if you ask me. So I'm not sure if they still allow you to unmount the cooler of this thing. That would be sad if they don't allow you anymore, because EVGA has been pretty much like the best company ever when it comes to the graphics card market about or with their warranty policies. So yeah, well, we have to agree or understand them that they really want, I think they want to minimize the returns with the touring cards in general, because these are just so expensive. The price of the 2080 Ti Kingpin is like 1900 to 2000 euros, so that is an absolutely insane sum. But if you ask me, there's more NVIDIA is more to blame about the high prices of the touring cards in general, because the starting price of the 2080 Ti graphics cards is just so insane already. So I wouldn't blame EVGA about the high price of this particular model. I would just blame NVIDIA as a whole, because at the moment there is no competition anymore at the graphics card market. So there's like there's no need for NVIDIA to bring better cards out to the market with cheaper price tags, like compared to what we see on the CPU market nowadays. The CPU market is totally consumer friendly at the moment, when we have much higher core counts coming in with cheaper price tags. That should happen to the graphics card market as well. But yeah, so here's how the card looks like with naked backside PCB. So there's this very beautiful Kingpin logo at the back, and let's see if I can unmount the cooler now. I really don't want to break this thing. How does it? Something's... Oh yeah. So the fan cable has been on the way. So it's now removed. So that's how the cooler looks like. So I think this is some sort of a stack unit to cool down the GPU itself. So that's the cooler part of this card. I will not be using the AIO if I can just use my custom GPU only water block with this card, but we will see. I have to check that out. So yeah, using an AIO cooler with such a high-end model like this is definitely something unique, but I will not use it if I can use my own solution, because my water cooling is just better in general. So here's how the card looks like on the front, with just the MOSFET and with just the VRM coolers in place. So you can use this with a GPU only water block if you just have adequate mounting for this card. And I think the same thing goes for GPU pot as well. You can at least use this part of the MOSFET cooler, but this is quite tight spot with this heatsink part over here. So I had to test how the card looks like when it's mounted on the Tek-9 Icon to see how it fits. So here you can see that it's mounted with 4 screws from the outer holes. So sadly, with this generation, you cannot use the 8-point mounting to have mounting pressure from each corner and from each side. You could use these inner holes as well, along with the outer holes, but I don't think that it really has an advantage over just using 4 screws like this. And also of note is that the pot does fit the card with all the VRM heatsinks installed. So yeah, it does fit, but the gap between this heatsink over here and the pot is not so big, so you cannot really use that thick insulation, but 3mm thick arm flex tape should be fine. I think the gap here is around ½ centimeter, so 5mm. So we'll be testing that out during this weekend. Here are all the connectors, 3 at the back, which we already went through. So let's check the jumpers. I think they are something about voltage or VRM switching frequency, I'm not sure. So I just checked what the jumpers do from the XDev's guide. So the first pair of jumpers is called OFSG, which means V-core offset. So it is just a quick jumper to adjust the V-core slightly up. So if you flip the switch 1, it will increase the VCore by plus 25 millivolts. And also if you flip the second one as well, it will also increase the VCore by another 25 millivolts. So if you flip both, then you increase the VCore by plus 50 millivolts. So it doesn't really do that much. The second part of the jumpers is called MEM LL, so it means MEM load line. Switch 1 will set the memory load line calibration to level 1, and switch 2 will just set it to another level. So I think the level 2 is just more aggressive load line calibration setting for the memory. And then the last one is called GPU load line calibration. So I think just like the MEM load line, the level 1 is more easier load line setting for the GPU, but I'm not sure. I also checked from the guide, so EVGA should still allow the end user to unmount the cooler. I think they just used the sticker to like check or follow if the user has unmounted the cooler. So if the sticker is broken when you send it back, I think they can just, or I think they will just inspect the card more accurately. So do not lie about your use. If you have to RMA one of these back to EVGA, I think they can follow any possible hardware level modifications. I also removed the memory part, or the memory like heatsink. So this little copper plate goes around the GPU die itself and cools down all the GDDR6 memory chips. So this is quite clever way to cool them. So the ASTEC unit cools down both the GPU as well as all the memory chips that are on the graphics card. And that is how the card looks like when it's totally naked. So the VRM structure is absolutely insane. The GPU is powered by a 16-phase MPS VRM system, and then the memory is just a three-phase, but also uses those MPS power stages. So they are 60 amps each, so that is pretty insane. So the power delivery system of this particular graphics card model is definitely well adequate, to say the least. So Buildzoid already made a more in-depth VRM analysis of this particular graphics card model, so there's really no need to go through all the same things. Here's the NVLink port for SLI, so this does support two-way SLI out of the box for normal use, and three-way and four-way SLI are more about benchmarking purposes nowadays. They aren't really that supported anymore compared to like what we had a few years ago with previous generations. So yeah, so that's how the system or the PCB looks like. Or the fan controller for the Radiator fans is located over here, and according to the guide at xdevs.com, it supports maximum current value of 1.4 amps at 12 volts. So if you want to use more fans on the Radiator, like push-pull configuration, then I think you should use another source for those two additional fans than plug all four to this particular connector, because 1.4 amps isn't that much if you want. I mean, if you consider it, then the BIOS chip or the BIOS switch is located here at the top part of the PCB. So this has three BIOS chips, so you definitely have some room for mistakes here. So if you find some really nice daily settings, you can use, or you can flash those settings to one position. Then you can try those custom extreme cooling BIOSes from EVGA guys, and you can flash one of those to the second position, and then you can use the stock default one on the third one. So you have many options you can choose from. your Pro bit connector is located over here. The guide of what each pin will measure is printed at this side of the PCB, but it's not so easy to show on camera. But I can tell you that every second pin of the Pro bit connector is a ground pin. So the first pin is called NVVDD, which means GPU voltage. Then third pin is called FBVDD, so that is your memory voltage. The guide at xdevs.com recommends that you should not run too high memory voltages for long periods of time, so like over 1.55 volts, or it might degrade some of the memory chips, so it's not recommended. But of course, when it comes to LN2 tests, we have to use relatively high memory voltage for short periods of time. Then the fifth pin is called PEX voltage, so I think this is your like PCI Express or PLL voltage. Then seventh pin is called plus 1V8, so I'm not fully sure what this is. Is this some 1.8 or auxiliary voltage? I'm not sure. And then the second last pin is just your plus 12 volt measurement pin. So that's how the Pro bit connector is wired up. But yeah, that's how the card looks like. So we already went through the this part of the graphics card, so I'm actually not fully sure what these ports here do. And that's pretty much how the graphics card looks like. So if you are more interested about the little and greedy details about the VRM, go check out the BuildZoid's PCB analysis of this particular graphics card model. I'll be testing this card out on LN2 this weekend, so we will see what happens. But other than that, if you like this short unboxing and first look of the card, then please give a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you on the next one.